Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to La Belle Ferionnée by Leonardo da Vinci. None other than the great Leonardo da Vinci. I'm just going to do a quick camera check here to make sure that we are... Yeah, looks pretty good to me. I might bring it down just a tad closer though, for your viewing pleasure. And do a little bit of a... I think that's about got it. By Jove. Yes, I think that's about got it. Alright. Why is that? Oh, well, I can fix this simply by adjusting this. Yes. Make sure we're still in focus. Yes, we are. And why didn't that move over? So, I will move it further. Now, let me see. By Jove, it doesn't seem to be... Focus okay? Yes, I think if anybody feels it is not okay, please let me know. Now, I'll adjust the lights somewhat so you can see the lovely Fenier. And I'm getting some glare off the background, so I have to take care of that first. Consequently, that is what I'm going to do. And how do I do this? Well, actually, there's an even easier way to do it. I'm thinking about it. There we go. And I'll just take some matte medium and simply cover up the gloss with the matte medium so you can see it better. Drop a little bit of water in that. And this will take care of the gloss. Now, you know when they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Well, since I'm using myself as an example of the dog, I was unaware, and I have been lamented about it a number of times. I was not aware that they had matte gel medium, glazing medium, which I'm using right this minute, in acrylic. I swear to you, I was not. And one of my students said to me, yeah, you can get that. In fact, I have some at home. I went, are you sure it's not gloss or semi-gloss or satin or some bloody thing? He goes, no, I'm sure. It says gloss. It goes matte. And I went, you have got to be bloody kidding me. Consequently, the minute he had convinced me, I zipped into Amazon because I wanted it fast, and I ordered it, and it's here, and it works fabulous. I mean, I have been using water for my glazes for donkey's years here, and I find out that the product is on the market. Now, by way of explanation, I think I've said this before, I'm an oil painter, and this isn't a problem in oil paint, but it's a huge problem for me anyway in acrylic paint. And lo and behold, what happens? It's invented. Little did I know. And I'm so amazed that I'm still in shock. And I mean that. Literally in shock. And the consequence of it is that my problems in terms of glazing are over. As far as I'm concerned, anyway. Because I have the medium. I mean, you have no idea how much I looked at this and didn't even clue into the fact that it might be available. I looked at water-based Marigeau medium. Oh God, stuff I've used in oil paints. Do they make it for water too? I went through the water-based oil colors, and I'm telling you, it was a futile endeavor because I didn't find the damn stuff. And then with yeah, they make that, I find out it's available. And I go, are you shitting me? I mean, really? So, the only one I have to blame, unfortunately, I might admit, I might add, is myself. Because, yeah, all I got to blame is myself. Because it's been available for a while. I just never thought to just basically go and say Liquitex matte glazing medium. If I had done that, let me tell you, it would have saved me a lot of time, especially on the Vermeers, because the trouble with water is it glazes down so thin that you have to apply multiple coats to get the right effect. And so I only have myself to blame. And I've decided how I'm going to punish myself. I'm going to give myself 50 strokes with a wet noodle. And hopefully that'll assuage my feelings of guilt at how stupid it was not looking into that. I mean, really. I mean, I complained about it so often. I guess the poor kid was afraid to say anything, like, until he finally got up the nerve and said, yeah, it's available. Because when I yelled, "What?" He did a double take, I gotta tell you. But I didn't realize I was that scary either. But anyway, be that as it may, but and I was happy for him because they finally started to follow my dictum, which is, if it's about art, ask. It doesn't matter what the question is. It doesn't matter. I will answer it. Whether you feel it might be dumb a question to ask, or whether you feel anything at all, just ask. There's no dumb questions in art. The reason is because if you don't know, you don't know. End of story. And he finally spoke up. And I said to him, "Why didn't you tell me this donkey's years ago?" And the look in his face was like, just what I've explained. So I then repeated the dictum: if it's about art, there are no bad questions. Now, I didn't go so far as to say, "Now repeat after me." I didn't do anything like that. But I think he gets it now. Like, don't tell. If I'm asking for something and I obviously don't know, tell me, because you have no idea the amount of looking I did. But it still stuns me. I don't know whether I did the wrong search or... because I never found it until I went looking for it, and then I found it right away. So what the hell was I looking for? I don't know. I can't remember. Like, obviously, there was a problem that was easily solved. But, again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I'm gonna go when the volcano blows. Dun, 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 dun. I'm trying the lights here to see if I can get the glare. Getting close there. No. Oh, that's better. Okay. This will be drying flat momentarily anyway. So we don't have too much to worry about. However, that is the way it stands right now. So what I'm about to do is some finer brushwork under her chin. And in order to do that, I am going to use a smaller brush. Well, not too small. Where's that? There we go. So while I have the panes out here, I'm going to mix it way down in the glaze. And I am going to just pointedly throw a little bit of darker color in here. Voila. Voila. Now, I'm going to take a little bit more and throw a bit more in here. And the reason I'm doing that is because that's how deep he went. Needless to say, I'm not going to argue with Da Vinci. If he wants it that dark, personally, I would not have gone that dark color. I would have toned flesh down to that color, which apparently he didn't really do. But in saying that, I have to look a little harder. Because frankly, I don't believe he didn't do that, so I'm going to mix the flesh tone into the shadow. And that probably is going to be closer to what he did. Trouble is, too, is I am looking at a fabulous reproduction, but it's still a reproduction. And I would have to see the original to ascertain exactly what color mixture he used. We work with what we have. And this is not being sold as a Leonardo. It's being sold as an acrylic of Leonardo. Not to say it's not going to be on the money, but let me just say, there's no forger out there who's going to say, hey, I got to, guess what? Leonardo developed acrylics way back in the 15th century. Yeah? Wow. There's news to me. Oh, behave. I'm pulling some paint off now and I won't behave. There we go. There we go. Ah, yes. Mucho better. Mucho better. Now what I'm going to do, if this has started to dry, hopefully, not yet. Not enough yet anyway. What about this side? No. I need some light. So I'm going to just pull it up to the edge. There we go. You can still see it, but I still have light. Because I can't paint in the dark. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. I just can't. What can I tell you? I just can't. Anyway, now we move into our titanium. If you recall, the last time we had this picture being worked on, I mentioned that I haven't moved into titanium white yet. In fact, the way it's looking, I may not, if I can't find this stuff, considering I have 2 tubes of it, so where the hell did it go? Oh, come on. Transparent, okay, I got that. Well, of course it's the one that's sticking up, right? I mean, where else would it be, right? Okay. So, I'm going to take a little bit of transparent white, which is opaque white, and I'm going to highlight through here and through here and through here, some down the nose, a little bit through here, and some on the chin, and then I'll deal with down below. Now one must be careful when using titanium. Yes, if I could talk, I'd literally be happy about that. Titanium white, because it is opaque white and it is very powerful. So I am being very careful how much I put down, because Jesus Murphy, okay, because I don't want to lose the transparency of the skin, because as it stands now I've got the equivalent of about I'd say about 40 glazes on the skin in transparent, and that's given me my transparency. So I don't want to lose that. So I'm putting a very thin coat of brighter white on top of that, because although the skin tone is coming through, he has it in more natural light. Well, more opaque light, I would say. And for instance, right where I'm working right here, the problem was that I just couldn't get the skin tone out with the transparent white, because in that one place he blows out the skin tone. Now, for any reason some of this sounds maybe a little technical or something like that, just yell, or just tell me and I'll explain. Because sometimes, I know it starts to sound a little technical, but what can I say? Oh, I know a question I was asked. I know I just mentioned it, didn't I? This is getting more than annoying here. What the hell is going on? Okay. I mentioned Merauge medium, and I talked about it before. And Merauge was a Frenchman, en français, s'il vous plaît. Anyway, what he developed was a medium to add to your oil paint. That mimicked old master techniques of glazing until it literally shone, right? There was a gloss on it. Because old masters didn't apply a varnish, they just kept applying paint, thinner coats, until you got that incredible look. And he developed this, and it was widely used. I mean widely used for quite some time. And the original formula is no longer used. When I say that, it is the original formula, but they don't have some of the binders in it. The original binders in the paint were varnishes and whatnot that he concocted, made from animal varnish, which all varnishes basically were, or insects like shellac and whatnot. So what happened is that painters who were using it found that over time it would yellow and basically it would look like a painting that came out of a smoke or a tobacco smoke filled environment. And it was bad enough as it was, considering like there was use of oil lamps and whatnot. And it quickly went out of fashion. And then it hit a revival about 20 some odd years ago now. A company bought up, I guess, whatever they had to buy up to get the rights or whatever. I don't know for sure, but however, it reappeared on the market, And the first thing people said was, "Oh, Jesus, don't use that, it yellows." And the company went in a huge campaign with artists to say, "No, no, 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 it will not yellow." And what they were kind of saying is they removed the animal varnishes from the original concoction that Morget had developed into non-yellowing varnishes, like modern varnishes. They don't yellow. And it started to grab a bit of a following again. But then this type of painting kind of didn't fall out of fashion so much, but people, it was just the wrong time and the wrong place. That's what happened. Now it would really fly. So the company's still around, but it didn't take off like it should have taken off. Because oil painters, you know, there was a period where people preferred, like, the flat look, they used to call it. In other words, the paint without any varnish on it at all, and it would just dry flat, 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 flat. And I personally never liked it, but I know some people who really did. And that's how they would leave their paint. And I'd say, "You mean you're not going to put any varnish on?" No. Well, the problem with that is, the big problem is that you basically leave your painting open to the elements, right? And people don't realize that, you know, if you have a gas furnace or even cooking on the stove, eventually, imperceptibly, the painting will start to discolor. And the color, I mean, it's not something you can just say, "Oh, look what happened." It's not really like that. It's so slow that usually people don't even notice. They get so used to looking at a painting, it's just like, "Oh, yeah, that's it, yeah, yeah." But then people started, because I clean paintings too and do restorations and stuff. And people would come to me and say, "Yeah, just..." When the flat movement sort of died, they'd come to me and say, I don't think it's so much dirty, but it just doesn't have any..." What they really wanted me to do was apply some varnish to it to protect it, maybe, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'd say, "Well, you know, what it really needs is a good cleaning." And then they say, "Well, nobody smokes, you know, like, what could make it dirty?" Then I'd have to go into this long, drawn-out explanation as to the dust, you know, like, you know, say you have a china cabinet or something. I said, "You ever notice how dust gets in there?" And they'd go, "Yeah, yeah." Well, same thing happens to paintings. It starts to adhere to the front. And most people are very nervous about cleaning anything to do on a painting, like applying any product or anything like that. And I'd say, "Well, yeah, so what I suggest is we clean the painting, and we'll take it from there." And I would get, "Yeah, okay, you know, you think so?" So I would clean the painting, and then I'd varnish it with whatever they like. Usually I used like a satin varnish or an eggshell type of varnish. And my God, when they came to see it, they'd go, "Oh my God, we had no idea." I said, "Well, you do now." And they would leave happy campers. which led me to more cleaning jobs. In fact, it got really busy after a while, but busier than I even wanted it to be, frankly. But they certainly changed the dynamics of the paintings. Yeah. And that was the flat movement. I don't know anybody who does that anymore. Personally, I'm sure there are, but personally, I don't know any. Because it's really out of fashion. If the painting looks too dull, people just don't seem to. And the trouble with oil painting, for instance, like the colors do get very dull. Which is exactly why the old masters glazed, to get that dullness out, right? And then you'd get people who brought paintings who they'd been varnished 25, 30, 40 years ago, who knows, and they were a mess. And frankly, it's a pain in the ass cleaning those paintings. And it's not that it's that hard, but it's laborious. And what I mean by that is that it simply, what would happen would be, you have to remove that old varnish. There's just no other way around it. There's nothing else can be done. You have to remove that old varnish. So the only way to really remove it is, well, a concoction you make up that removes varnish. Not something like you'd put on an old door or something. I mean like a much lighter concoction than that. But the thing is, what you have to do is you have to take a cotton ball, and every square inch of the painting has to be gone over with that cotton ball. Every square inch. And you have to remove the varnish. You have no other options. You have to remove it. And then you have to clean the painting, because God knows when they varnished it. So you remove the varnish, then clean the painting. And then, after it was all clean, you'd revarnish it with non-yellowing modern fine art varnishes. And like even acrylics, for instance, that don't really need a varnish, frankly, I still cover them with an acrylic varnish. A clear acrylic varnish. And mainly I do that because they can basically just be white cleaned with a couple of drops of Dawn, what do they call that stuff? Dawn dishwashing liquid or whatever. It can be cleaned that easy. And it's right back the way it was. And it won't affect the varnish at all. So the painting can be as bright as the day you bought it. And the acrylic varnishes for oil paintings, if it isn't a valuable oil painting, like I mean like $25,000, $30,000, then, and you just want to make, it's been in the family or something, and you just want it to look as good as it can be, I will use an acrylic varnish on those as well. Now they reformulated some varnishes now that are very close to Damar varnish, which was the industry standard for years and years and years, and it's non-yellowing, and I will use that on a painting unless it's a really top-end restoration. I've done some of those, but the trouble is you can't screw up. And then what happens is you'll get paintings that'll come in too with damage on them. Literally holes in the canvas and whatnot, and you have to fix those. And it's not hard to fix them. In fact, it's the hole isn't hard to fix, because what you do is you simply take the hole and trim around it so it's all the threads are no longer fraying. And there's a couple of ways to do it. You can buy literally fabric strands, and if it's a really valuable painting, like, or it's a really old painting and you want it done like right back the way it was, you literally, what you do is you take glue and you take tweezers and lay the actual strands of like cotton strands. It's not made out of cotton, they're made out of a cotton blend of some space age material. I don't know what the hell it is, but anyway, for all intents and purposes it's cotton. And you would do that, and then you would build layer, like basically weave the thing back together, gluing as you went. And pretty soon it's like invisible mending. The painting is back with the hole completely repaired. And then what you do is you put on some Gamblin gesso. Gamblin makes all the colors and gessos for this type of work. So when you want it, the industry standard, in my opinion, is Gamblin, because that's all I've ever used. In fact, that's all anybody who does this, as far as I know, has ever used. So, who does this kind of work? But anyway, that's what you do, and then the hole is fixed. If it's that's a small hole, by the way. Okay, so then you match where the hole is to the surrounding colors, etc. Again with Gamblin colors, and it's fixed. And the object of the game is you never see it. If you see it, you failed. If they can't see it, they go, where was it? You won the game. Now that's for a small hole. If you need to do a large hole, fix a large hole, then what you do is you trim around the hole, and what you do is you take a piece of ungessoed cotton and you match the cotton to what the original painting was on. So it could be loose, you can buy all different kinds of cotton for supports, and you match the weave of the cotton to the painting that the painting's on. And then what you do is you trim back against the big hole, and you use there's a special glue that you can use, and you literally glue the outsides. You make the patch bigger than the hole, the outsides of it, to the hole, and press it. I use tape, but I tape it so it's completely shut. Now what happens is now the cotton patch is lower than the where the hole is, so you've got to fix that. And how you do that is you take again Gamblin ground, and you fill the hole with the ground. So usually, you're talking probably, oh God, maybe a millimeter, right? The thickness of the cotton, I mean, it's very little between the space between the cotton and the regular cotton that was on top. And you fill it up very carefully and just very gently work the very edges of that ground into the weave of the cotton with an X-Acto type knife into it, so when it dries, the cotton fiber literally looks like it's part of the painting. And then what you need to do is match the painting to where the hole was. Now, some guys who do the restoration send that out to guys like me. It's not unknown to do that, because some guys are unbelievable restorers. The painting side's maybe not quite as good. So there's always somebody that can do that. You can find guys like me. It's not like we're hiding or anything. So that's how it's done. And now the best restoration job I've seen in the last while was the Salvator Mundi painting by Da Vinci that was just sold for $450 million. The woman who did that is an American woman who spent months and months doing it. After all, it was Leonardo da Vinci. And did an absolutely incredible job. I can't think of a better job that I've ever seen anyway. Unbelievable. And my hat's off to her. She's an artist and restorer, so, and she's way better than me. I wouldn't even attempt it. Not at Leonardo da Vinci anyway. But I mean, let's face it, I mean, she's at the top of her game, and that's what she does, and she's unbelievable at it. And that's what you want. And that's what she did. And that's why you heard when it was being sold, or there was some negative press went in, probably from the galleries who had turned it down, about the extensive restoration. Really not that much. In the scheme of things, mostly what she did was correct old damage from previous restorations. Took the paint off that people had over the centuries done to try to well, whatever problem they had, they thought they'd fix it, and then what happened was, that was years and years ago. Some of it was like 16th century, and oh god, ancient stuff. So most of it was taking all that off, which she did, and got right down to the Da Vinci, and then she restored it from there. Now, parts of the painting were very badly damaged, and parts of it were not so bad. But I gotta say that she did an absolutely amazing job. And as far as I'm concerned, it's back to the original status of the painting. And it doesn't detract at all from its value. It may detract from the value if it was a lesser artist, but considering it was Leonardo da Vinci, no, it does not detract at all. And I defy anybody to tell me where the repairs have been made. Not really repairs, more like basically where she even touched it. Even Leonardo wouldn't be able to tell. And that's saying something. Incredible talent. I'm just in awe of what she did. And that's the state of the talent of people that are out there. You know, you hear people say, "Oh, man, nobody can do that anymore." Bullshit. There are people out there who can fix anything. And the beauty of it today is they use modern materials, and by using modern materials, you're really getting a good job, because you've got non-yellowing varnishes, and you've got paint that is formulated basically from the original paints. And oh man, you don't change color, you chromograph the color so you know exactly what color you were originally dealing with, and then you match it, and oh god. I mean, what I mean to say is, in the final analysis, it's still the artist's eye that does it, but let me tell you, there's lots of help. And I'm just absolutely in awe. Of some of these people's abilities. The previous one that well, it's not true. I actually do some porcelain work and whatnot. I once repaired an entire thing of Moorcroft pottery, and the people who brought it to me could not tell me where I had fixed it, which I thought was one hell of a compliment. So I do some porcelain work and pottery work if I have to do a repair. Again, though, there's materials out there that are just incredible, but that's really not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that there are people who do stuff so well that it's just incredible. And my previous all-time nod to these guys, or these women or guys, whoever, was to the people who put the Portland vase in the British Museum together again. That was an amazing situation. And I mean amazing. I think I've told this story, but I guess I could tell it again if nobody gives a damn one way or the other of you. Well, the story is this, and this is all on record, so you can go and check it out for yourself if you so desire. In the 1840s, I believe, just off the top of my head, I don't know if he was a duke or he was an earl or I don't know, some aristocrat, a British aristocrat, had basically found this vase when he was on holiday in Italy, and he had it shipped home, which in those days, because Rule Britannica ruled the world, right? So it was a glass vase, and it was cobalt blue, and it had been dipped in white glass, and the white glass had been somehow, nobody knows how the Romans did this to this day, I will tell you, had been chipped away, and they had made scenes. Now, at the time, they thought they were biblical scenes. They weren't. They were scenes of Roman gods and goddesses, but they interpreted them as biblical scenes in the 1800s. So why, I don't know. Well, I do know, but you know, different times, you know. Anyway. So anyway, that being said, they, as he passed on, I believe, or whatever, in order to let the people of Britain appreciate this, he, I don't know if the family loaned it or gave it. I'm not 100% sure. But they gave it to the British Museum, where it sat on display for many, many years. Everybody oohing and ahhing. A little bit of a historical thing for people who are interested in pottery about this is Josiah Wedgwood spent his entire life trying to replicate it and never was able to. He did make one, but it sure as hell had nothing on the actual Portland vase. But anyway, that's a little side story there. But anyway, it's all in the record, if you want to look it up. So what happened was, a drunken Irishman, and the reason I know he was Irish is because in the original court papers, he was identified as such, an Irishman. Anyway, he came in drunk into the museum, and for whatever reason, threw a brick through the Portland vase, which stood about 14 inches high. And he threw a brick through it and smashed it to smithereens. Now, the reason I know when this is known is because he was arrested. And in the court documents, it says who he is, his name. Don't recall it offhand. Asshole would be my first guess, but no. Probably something else. And he was arrested and for public mischief, I think it was. And for breaking the vase. And the next day he was bailed out of jail and fined. Well, he was fined. I think that's what happened. He was fined a certain amount. It went down on the record, and he disappears into history. Who was the guy? Nobody knows. What happened to him? Nobody knows. Gone. But we still have the broken Portland vase. Now, here is the savior of the story, is the part I'm going to tell you next. And that is the curator of the British Museum, who, again, his name escapes me off the top of my head, but again, it's all on the record. And he tried his damnedest, and you got a hand to this guy. He really tried. And he glued the Portland vase back together. And frankly, from the time he did it, he did an amazing job. But that wasn't why he's remembered as a very smart man. What he must have realized is that sometime in the future, they might have the technology to put this back together. So in the 1990s, a group of conservators looked at the porcelain vase to see what could be done using modern methods. And to their amazement, what they discovered was all the bits, the little pieces of glass and all the little pieces that he never could get to fit properly and couldn't get them to glue or whatever the problem was, he kept. He kept them in storage. And they were the pieces of the porcelain vase. And when they found these, they realized they could completely restore the vase. And over the next 10, 11 months, that's exactly what they did. The team literally, under a microscope, started repiecing this vase together. So that even the little shards of glass, they were able to see by doing 3D imaging where they fit into the broken glass. So they took it all apart. That's what I'm saying. They took completely dismantled it from the previous gluing job. So it's all in pieces again. And then they started. And they moved around the glass and around the glass until they had what they thought was the complete restoration finished. Then they realized they were, I think it was 0.5 millimeter. They were out. So somewhere there was a glue or a setting that was off a fraction of a degree in the restoration process. So what did they do? They did what any good restorer would do. They disassembled the vase again, found their mistake, and fixed it. And in each place that they fixed it, they put 3 minuscule little isotopes. And the reason they did that, these are almost molecular in size, but they put them in, and the reason they put them in was that they felt that in some time in the future, if there's even a better technique, then they would be able to see where all the gluing had taken place and what parts had been glued back together. Because if you look at the vase now, you can't tell it was ever broken. And they did that. And now if you go to look at the porcelain vase, it is as perfect as the Romans made it, except that it had been broken. But you can't tell. It's absolutely perfect. Down to the most minute shard of glass, if you can believe it. And I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that in itself was a modern miracle. And that stayed a modern miracle for quite some time. Now, I don't remember if the Pieta, which is Michelangelo's Michelangelo's Virgin Mary with the dying Jesus in her arms, would be the second modern miracle. And that is because a madman, I think his name was Laszlo something. I'm sorry I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but You can look it up. It's not, just Google it. It's there. What isn't there is the restoration, how they did it. But what he did is he took a hammer to the side of the head of the statue of Mary and smashed it to pieces. Basically dust. He hit it so hard. That's why there's a great big, huge, 1-inch thick plexiglass thing around it now, so nobody can get near it, because prior to that it had been out in the open. So he ruined it for everybody, but you can still see it. Mind you, I was always a little ticked off. They don't clean the glass very well, and there's scratches on it. Oh, God. I think the Vatican, with the amount of money they have, would at least try to take care of one of its treasures, but no. Why would you? And you can... cheap bastards, but anyway. So what happened was, the same technique was immediately taken up. They roped it off, completely closed off the entire access to it after this happened. Only this time they used high-tech vacuums to vacuum up each and every piece of dust that came off of that statue where the damage was. And they then took the absolutely laborious job of slowly but surely taking every little piece of dust and chunks of broken marble and reassembling them as if they were never had been taken apart, right down basically to the rock strata, the marble strata. And it took a long time. But when they were done, you literally cannot see any damage at all. You can't. They left one little spot still damaged, one tiny little spot. So people in the future would know where the damage, it had been damaged like that. And it's a modern miracle. Literally a modern miracle. I've seen it repaired. And I have to say that the conservators who did that, they just weren't good. They were like magicians, honestly. The repair job was beyond belief. But again, the Vatican, knowing how much this is one of the seventh wonders of the world now, actually spent the money, if you can believe it, to have the best people do it. And the best people did exactly what they were paid to do. They fixed it. So for once, they spent their money wisely, which was nice to see. Not the least considering that probably 1 million people a year go to see it. So if it was damaged, then people might not come. And they had that fear, probably. But they did the right thing, so I'm not going to second guess them. And that was the right thing to do. If you're able to, fix the damn thing. But restoration is not without controversy. And why I say that is that if you take the restoration of the Last Supper that was done, many people, and I mean many people, were very upset with the results. Very upset. And the reason they were upset is because it had been painted over many, many times over the years. In fact, it had been painted over and repaired in Leonardo's time. Once even by Leonardo. Because Leonardo was a guy who was not given to patience. So what he did, he had this commission that he had to do. And what he decided to do was experiment on drying the paint fast. So he didn't have to spend so much time. And the experiment failed. And in his lifetime, he had been called back because the painting had been starting to deteriorate in his lifetime. So, needless to say, 500 years later, many, many hands had gone and repaired existing damage. Well, not damage so much, just the painting. You know? And a group decided that you can't call it a Leonardo if all these artists had their footprints on it. So therein lies the controversy. What you know was the Last Supper really wasn't the Last Supper, because Leonardo, his work had been obscured. Original work had been obscured. So the decision was made, no, we'll take everything off except what Leonardo painted. And they did. And there was a hue and cry. Let me tell you. Butchery. They've ruined the Last Supper. On and on and on. And be honest with you, it is almost completely faded. The original paint. And it isn't much to look at anymore. I mean, except for the fact that Leonardo did it. It would be well to restore it like the Mundi, Salvator Mundi was restored. But there's no funds for that. So they spent all their money on this restoration, and were they right? Well, I'm not going to judge one way or the other. On one hand, well, you should just see Leonardo's work. On the other hand, it was sort of like an icon, so I don't know. I've never really been able to make up my mind on it. But as I said, you know, the controversy still rages, actually. people screaming about destroying it, and the arguments that went with it. It was part of the history of it. Mind you, those arguments were kind of blown out of the water when they restored the Sistine Chapel. But again, let's face it, the Vatican didn't pay for that. They were approached by a Japanese television company who said, we would like to clean the Sistine Chapel, and we will do it with professional conservators, and we guarantee the results. It will look just the way he painted it. And the Vatican went, oh, you're going to pay for it? Oh, sure, go ahead. And they did. And actually, I was there when it was about a third done. And I'll never forget it. It was unbelievable. A third of it was cleaned, and then there was scaffolding, and then where they were starting to do the next section. And then the rest of it was there the way it's been for centuries. And it was like night and day. And for me, personally, it was kind of like a revelation, because you see, prior to that, there was a whole line of academic thought that said, medieval colors were muted, and like it was a Hobbesian society, like short, brutish, and that's was the common theme in the people who were doing theses on medieval art. That was the common theme. And actually, I was taught that. I always had my doubts, though. And the reason I always had my doubts is because if you looked at Hieronymus Bosch and these guys, there wasn't, or a Cranach the Elder and all this stuff, they weren't painting in colors that were dull and washed out. They were a riot of color, and they portrayed the peasantry, and especially the Cranachs. And I thought, you're basing all this research on what you see, and what you see is maybe really what is not what's really there. But anyway, I went along with it. I mean, after all, you have to pass the course. Right? But I didn't really believe it. So when they started cleaning it, I did an internal chuckle that should have been heard. Like, oh my God, you bunch of assholes. And all of those PhDs and all those art historians, all their work got trashed in one day. Basically. And I was as happy as a pig in what. I went, well, so much for your theses and proving your theses and expounding on your dissertation with dozens of books, all of which were erroneous. And I was happy as a pig. But anyway, that's how it went, and nobody was happier than me. And one of the reasons that I actually, well, at the time I disagreed, I didn't vocalize it because I was young and I had to pass, was that my art teacher, who was a professional artist, an amazing professional artist who had been trained by very, very good instructors in the 40s, who happened to go to the Ontario College of Art. They were all gone when I got there, unfortunately. Because she was young in the 40s when she went, so you can imagine they were, by the time I went, they'd have been like 125 years old. But anyway, I digress. But she had always said to me, she drilled it into my head. And what she said to me was, you know, people love color. Don't ever let anybody tell you that people don't like color. In my experience as an artist, people just love color. And any chance you got when you're doing a painting and you've got color, lean on the side of color, because people love color. And I went, okay, and I remembered the lesson well. So I was, needless to say, I was a little bit shocked that when I go to the Ontario College of Art where she went, I'm hearing not the exact opposite, but a completely different take on the artwork in medieval Europe. And I'm going, what the hell's going on? So my respect for that woman was so high that I didn't believe it. I went, no. One of the reasons too is she was taught the opposite. So I wondered, like, what the hell happened over the last 30, 40 years that changed all this? Like, what's going on? Like, how come the theory was this and now it's this? And who changed the theory? Like, what happened? And I don't remember exactly, but I think I asked her about it. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I did ask her about it when I was going to the article. And because the answer seems to be something that I remember, not something I thought through. That's why I think I asked her about it. Because it was like, don't believe everything you read, basically. That's kind of what she said. And I didn't. So you can imagine my delight when it was all proved BS. When all these paintings started coming out of private collections and being given to me permanent loan to art museums, so they can all these formerly incredibly wealthy aristocrats didn't have to pay the tax and all this stuff. And all of a sudden the museum started to get filled with incredible artwork that only a few people had even seen. You know, like, all of a sudden it's all there. Which is why, if you watch that movie Tim's Vermeer, it's all hokum, because they'll tell you right in the actual movie that he was allowed to see the original painting for all of maybe 15 minutes, and he admits it right on TV or right on the movie. And I went, Jesus, man, how are you telling me you're doing a Vermeer and making proclamations on how it was done and what his ideas were and all this stuff, and you never even really saw the painting. You know, like, come on. Then I realized that, you know, if you know Penn and Teller, it was just an elaborate joke that worked so well that people still quote him. I'm going, oh my God, Penn Jillette has pulled the best magic trick off you could ever pull. I think probably in his will he'll say, the best magic trick I ever pulled was letting people think that Tim's Vermeer was real. Jesus. Hilarious. And once you watch the movie knowing that it's, well, it's not real, you can look for all the hints that they give you in the movie. God, they're everywhere. And the biggest one is when he's talking to Penn Jillette in a little park just on the other side of, I think it was Buckingham Palace, and he's saying that they had allowed him in to see the Queen's pictures, but he was only allowed to see it for 15 minutes or something. And the original of what he did, which was the woman at the pianoforte. I'm going, so now you go back and spent 5 years making up a story about how Vermeer painted. Oh God. What a goddamn joke, eh? But that's Penn and Teller. If you know them, that's what they do. And I think it's hilarious. I really do. I mean, wow. I wish I had thought of it. Mind you, they got a lot more money than I do. But it strikes my sense of humor. Anyway. La da 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 da. Mona Lisa, in your smile, is it only for a moment, Mona Lisa? Da, 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 da. I got a paint piece in there. I'm gonna have to get out. Jesus. Mona Lisa, my Mona Lisa, my Mona Lisa. There's the offending particle right there. It's just Mona Lisa, my Mona Lisa. Are you real or just imagine Mona Lisa? Working hard, Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa. Da, 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 sorry, folks, but I gotta be able to see it. I know, every time this happens when I put a background in. Ah, that's better. Okay. I can live with that. Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, was it real or just a Mona Lisa? Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa. Are you real or just imagine Mona Lisa? Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Mona Lisa. Just goes to show you, you know, I was planning tonight to get her hair in, and now I'm not going to be able to do it. But that's okay, because I got the coloring right on the face. I got the coloring right. Yes, I did. Is it real? Just imagine. Lisa. Da, 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 Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa. Just when you thought you got them, something hits you right in the eye. Yes, I see it. Oh. Da, 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 was it real? Or just imagine Mona Lisa, my Mona Lisa, my Mona Lisa. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa. Da, da, da. Huh? Okay. Well, folks, that's it for tonight. It's been a slice. There she is. Now you can see her, I hope. Oh my God. Oh, can you still see her? No. You can see her without the other lights on. Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa. It's a pity I had to put on the background to see it, but that's more like it there. Just a little bit of a little light. Just like, anyway, I'll figure it out. I'll do it during the day and then you'll be able to see it. Okay, thank you kindly. Thank you for watching. And we shall return.